What if a movie wasn't trying to entertain you, but unsettle you? Released at the edge of cultural panic, Cruising didn't just divide audiences, it exposed them, accused, protested, cut apart, and misunderstood. This film refused comfort. These aren't trivia facts. These are the strange, unsettling truths behind one of the most controversial thrillers ever made. Number 20. The film triggered real-life protests during production. While shooting Cruising, activists from New York's gay community flooded the streets, blasting whistles, mirrors, and sirens to sabotage takes. Their fear wasn't abstract. Hollywood had a history of portraying queer men as deviants or predators. Director William Friedkin later admitted the noise forced him to abandon dialogue-heavy scenes and rely more on atmosphere. Ironically, those disruptions helped create the film's fractured, paranoid tone. Number 19. Al Pacino was deliberately kept in the dark. Al Pacino was never given a clear psychological explanation for his character's transformation. Friedkin wanted confusion, not clarity. Pacino was encouraged to play scenes without knowing whether his character was undercover or losing himself. This wasn't method acting, it was strategic disorientation. The result is a performance that feels unstable, drifting, and unsettling. Viewers still debate whether his character was acting or slowly becoming someone else entirely. Number 18. Many club scenes used real patrons. Several of the film's most infamous nightclub sequences weren't staged with actors. They were populated by real members of New York's leather scene. Friedkin gained access to underground clubs rarely documented on film at the time. The extras weren't instructed to act. They were told to behave naturally. That documentary realism is why the scenes feel voyeuristic rather than choreographed, and why the film still feels dangerous decades later. Number 17. The killer's identity is intentionally unresolved. Despite audience expectations, Cruising refuses to give a clean answer about who the killer really is. Multiple characters fit the pattern, and visual clues contradict one another. Friedkin later confirmed this ambiguity was intentional. The film isn't a whodunit, it's about paranoia, surveillance, and identity erosion. The lack of closure enraged critics in 1980, but later became one of the film's most discussed artistic choices. Number 16. It was one of the first mainstream films to show this world uncensored. Before Cruising, Hollywood avoided explicit depictions of gay subcultures entirely or erased them through suggestion. This film didn't blink. Leather bars, coded language, rituals, and spaces were shown directly without soft lighting or apology. That boldness is why the film was attacked, and why historians now study it. Even critics who despised its politics admit it captured a moment mainstream cinema wasn't ready to see. Number 15. The ending costume was meant to disturb, not explain. In the final moments of Cruising, Al Pacino appears wearing leather gear similar to the killer's victims. This wasn't meant as a reveal or twist. Friedkin wanted the audience unsettled, unsure whether the character had merely absorbed the role or crossed an invisible line. The costume is symbolic, not literal, suggesting how prolonged exposure, surveillance, and role-playing can erode identity until performance and self-blur completely. Number 14. Several scenes were cut and lost forever. Original versions of Cruising were far longer and even more explicit. Studio pressure and public backlash led to heavy cuts before release. Some deleted scenes, including additional murders and character material, were never archived properly. Friedkin later confirmed parts of the film no longer exist in any form. What audiences see today is not the full vision, but a compromised version shaped by fear, censorship, and cultural panic. Number 13. Critics hated it, but historians keep returning to it. Upon release, the major critics largely condemned the film as exploitative and offensive. Yet decades later, Cruising is studied in film schools, queer theory texts, and retrospectives on New Hollywood. Why? Because it captures a pre-AIDS subculture on the brink of disappearance. Even those who reject its perspective admit it preserved spaces, rituals, and anxieties that would soon vanish under tragedy and moral backlash. Number 12, Friedkin treated it like a horror film. Despite being marketed as a crime thriller, Friedkin approached Cruising structurally like a horror movie. Repetition, uncertainty, nighttime streets, anonymous threats. The killer is less a character than a presence. The city itself becomes predatory. This horror framing explains why the film feels oppressive rather than procedural, and why it plays closer to The Exorcist than a traditional police drama. Number 11. The film predicted debates Hollywood still hasn't resolved. Cruising raised questions that remain unresolved today. Who gets to tell marginalized stories? Does representation require approval? Can depiction be separated from endorsement? The film arrived decades before social media, yet sparked culture war arguments that feel eerily modern. That unresolved tension between intention, impact, and interpretation is why the movie refuses to fade away, no matter how uncomfortable it makes viewers feel. Number 10. The city was treated as a character. In Cruising, New York isn't a backdrop, it's an active force. Friedkin shot grimy streets, anonymous hallways, and shadow-filled bars to create a sense of constant exposure. There's no safe space, no daylight relief. The city watches, traps, and reshapes people. This choice turns the film from a police story into an urban nightmare, where environment slowly crushes certainty and identity. Number 9. The killer blends into the crowd on purpose. The film repeatedly introduces characters who could plausibly be the murderer. Similar glasses, similar voices, similar movements. This was intentional misdirection. Friedkin wanted the killer to feel interchangeable. Less a person, more a symptom. Violence becomes something that can emerge from anywhere. By denying a singular villain, the film forces viewers to sit with unease rather than the comfort of resolution. Number 8. Pacino studied undercover cops, not serial killers, to prepare as Al Pacino spent time with real undercover officers who described the psychological toll of long-term immersion. Their stories weren't about danger, they were about identity drift, forgetting where the role ended, losing personal anchors. Pacino used this to shape his performance, focusing less on fear and more on quiet detachment. That's why his character feels hollowed out rather than traumatized. Number 7. The soundtrack was designed to disorient. Rather than a traditional score, the film relies heavily on ambient club music, mechanical sounds, and repetition. Songs bleed into scenes without clear transitions. Rhythms feel hypnotic, almost numbing. This wasn't accidental. Friedkin wanted the audience to feel overstimulated yet emotionally distant, mirroring the main character's mental state as routine, noise, and ritual slowly override clarity. Number 6. The film aged darker than anyone expected. When Cruising was released, few could predict what was coming. Within years, the AIDS crisis would devastate the very communities the film documented. Viewed today, the movie feels haunted, capturing nightlife, intimacy, and freedom just before catastrophe. That unintended historical weight has transformed the film from controversial thriller into a disturbing time capsule, layered with loss no one in 1980 could have imagined. Number 5. The film was never meant to be about the community. Director William Friedkin repeatedly insisted that Cruising wasn't intended as a statement on gay identity, but as a story about infiltration and psychological fracture. That claim only fueled controversy. Viewers didn't see abstraction. They saw representation. The disconnect between authorial intent and audience impact became the film's real battleground, turning it into a case study in how meaning escapes its creator the moment a movie hits the screen. Number 4. The police presence reflects real mistrust. The film's depiction of law enforcement isn't heroic or reassuring. Cops are distant, secretive, and emotionally detached. This wasn't accidental. Friedkin mirrored the strained relationship between police and queer communities in late 1970s New York. Raids, surveillance, and profiling were part of everyday reality. That underlying hostility gives the film its constant edge. Authority never feels protective, only invasive. Number 3. The movie nearly ended Friedkin's mainstream career. Coming off The Exorcist and The French Connection, Friedkin was one of Hollywood's most powerful directors. Cruising changed that overnight. The backlash damaged his studio standing and made financiers wary. While he continued working, he never regained the same blank check freedom. In that sense, cruising isn't just about personal risk, it represents a career-altering gamble that permanently reshaped its creator's trajectory. Number 2. It captures a world that vanished almost immediately. Within a few short years of the film's release, the AIDS crisis would devastate the nightlife and communities cruising documented. Many of the spaces, rituals, and faces on screen would disappear. What was once criticized as sensationalism is now viewed as accidental preservation. The film unknowingly recorded a fleeting cultural moment, raw, unfiltered, and gone almost as soon as it was captured. Number 1. The discomfort is the point. Cruising refuses to reassure. It withholds answers. It denies moral clarity. The unease viewers feel isn't a flaw, it's the mechanism. Friedkin wanted audiences to feel watched, uncertain, and destabilized. That's why the film still provokes arguments decades later. Movies designed to please fade quickly. Movies designed to unsettle tend to survive. Cruising remains one of the most argued over films of its era. Not because it's easy to defend, but because it refuses to sit still. It's a thriller, a horror film, a time capsule, and a provocation. Love it or reject it, the movie forces a reaction, and that more than comfort is what keeps cinema alive.